Welcome back to Ponzinomics. I'm Alex.
Good evening, folks. I'm Sam. Tonight, New York City, the largest Ponzi scheme in recorded human history. $65 billion, 40 years. And a man who was, at the time, the chairman of NASDAQ.
Bernie Madoff. The name has become shorthand for financial betrayal. But the details, the actual mechanics of what he did and how long he did it, are even more extraordinary than the headline number suggests.
Much more extraordinary. Let's get into it.
Bernard Lawrence Madoff was born in Brooklyn in 1938. His father was a plumber, not exactly a privileged start. In 1960, age 22, fresh out of Hofstra University with a political science degree, he started his own investment firm, Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities.
With what capital?
$5,000, earned from working as a lifeguard and installing garden sprinklers, plus a $50,000 loan from his father-in-law.
He started the largest Ponzi scheme in history with sprinkler installation money.
And a loan from his wife's dad. The firm was initially a legitimate market maker, finding buyers and sellers for stocks that weren't listed on the main exchanges. And here's the remarkable thing. It was genuinely successful. Madoff was innovative. His firm helped develop the technology that would eventually become NASDAQ. He was a founding figure of that exchange.
He was chairman of NASDAQ.
He was chairman of NASDAQ, the stock exchange itself. He was on boards of nonprofits, respected charities, cultural institutions. He was a pillar of the community, specifically the wealthy Jewish community of New York, which is where the story takes a particularly dark turn. But we'll get there.
He built the whole thing on legitimacy. Real legitimacy. And then he used it.
The investment management side of Madoff's firm, the part where the fraud lived, was kept deliberately low profile, exclusive, hard to get into. If you wanted Madoff to manage your money, you needed an introduction. You needed to know someone. It was invitation only.
Which made people want it more.
Exactly. Scarcity creates desire. And the returns were extraordinary. Consistent, steady, somewhere between 10 and 12% per year, year after year, regardless of what the market was doing. Bear markets, crashes, recessions, Madoff kept delivering.
Immune to the market. How remarkable.
The strategy he claimed to use was called split strike conversion, buying blue chip stocks and hedging with options. Legitimate strategy, except he never actually did it. Not once. What he actually did was deposit every client's money into a single account at Chase Manhattan Bank. And when clients asked for withdrawals, he paid them from that account. Their money or someone else's. Classic Ponzi mechanics. Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
That's it. That was the entire operation. A bank account.
That was it. On the 17th floor of the Lipstick Building in Manhattan, a team of employees would watch the S&P 100 closing prices every day. Then, they'd pick the best performing stocks, after the fact, and backdate fake trades to those stocks, creating the illusion of a portfolio that had made exactly the right calls. Every statement was fiction. Every trade was invented.
They were just making it up. Every day. For decades.
For decades. The auditing firm signing off on all of this, the firm responsible for verifying $65 billion in assets, was a 3-person operation. One active accountant, located in a small office in a strip mall in New York.
A strip mall.
A strip mall.
$65 billion. Strip mall accountant. Of course.
Madoff specifically targeted the wealthy American Jewish community, his own community. He used his status, his philanthropy, his board memberships, his reputation, to obtain investments from Jewish individuals and institutions who trusted him precisely because he was one of them. This is what's called affinity fraud, using shared identity as the mechanism of trust.
Who did he take from?
The Elie Wiesel Foundation for Humanity. Elie Wiesel, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Holocaust survivor, one of the most important moral voices of the 20th century, lost his foundation's entire endowment. Steven Spielberg's charitable foundation. Hadassah, the Women's Zionist Organization of America. Jewish hospitals. Jewish federations. Some were forced to close permanently.
He stole from Holocaust survivors' charities, from Elie Wiesel, using his own community's trust as the weapon.
He also had an affair with the CFO of one of those Jewish charitable organizations who had invested $40 million with him. She later testified at his sentencing, calling him a beast.
A beast. That's a fair judgment.
Now, here is the part of this story I find most astonishing. In 1999, a financial analyst named Harry Markopolos was asked by his firm to investigate whether they could replicate Madoff's strategy.
And?
It took him 4 minutes to conclude that Madoff's numbers didn't add up, another minute to suspect they were fraudulent, and 4 hours of mathematical analysis to prove, definitively, that what Madoff claimed to be doing was mathematically impossible. To execute his stated strategy at the scale he claimed would have required buying more options on the Chicago Board Options Exchange than actually existed in the entire market.
He needed more options than existed on the entire exchange. Or in layman's terms, the numbers didn't add up.
Right. Markopolos went to the SEC in 2000. They ignored him. He went back in 2001. Ignored. In 2005, he submitted a detailed 21-page report to the SEC's New York office titled, and this is the actual title, "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." He named Madoff explicitly, listed the red flags, showed his mathematical proof.
And?
Ignored.
Tremendous. Really stellar regulatory work.
He went back again in 2007. Ignored again. For 10 years, Markopolos tried to get someone, anyone in authority, to look at what he was certain was the largest fraud in financial history. Nobody did.
10 years. Amazing.
The SEC conducted 6 separate investigations of Madoff between 1992 and 2008. Found nothing. Madoff later said, and this is his quote, that he could have been caught in 2003, but that the investigators had never even looked at his stock records. He said, "If you're looking at a Ponzi scheme, it's the first thing you do."
He was giving them tips from prison on how they could have caught him.
Before prison, before his arrest, in interviews, he found it genuinely baffling that nobody had stopped him.
And the SEC investigator assigned to his case?
Married his niece.
The SEC investigator married Madoff's niece during the investigation.
He said he did not participate in any inquiry once he was in a relationship with her.
Wow, that's a relief. Completely reassuring. Nothing to see here.
By late 2008, the financial crisis was in full swing. Clients needed their money. Redemption requests flooded in. By November 2008, Madoff's Chase account which had held $5.5 billion earlier in the year, was down to $234 million. He couldn't meet the requests.
How did it end?
He confessed. To his sons, Mark and Andrew, who worked in the trading side of the firm, he told them he was finished, that he had absolutely nothing, that the investment fund was, in his own words, just one big lie. Basically, a giant Ponzi scheme.
And what did the sons do?
They went to a lawyer immediately, who took them to federal prosecutors. The next day, December 11th, 2008, FBI agents arrested Bernie Madoff at his Manhattan penthouse.
His own sons turned him in.
On Christmas Eve 2008, Bernie and Ruth Madoff attempted suicide together. Both took a quantity of pills. They both survived.
Christmas Eve.
He pleaded guilty to 11 federal felonies on March 12, 2009. On June 29, 2009, Judge Denny Chin sentenced him to the maximum possible, 150 years in federal prison.
150 years.
His projected release date, accounting for good behavior, was January 31st, 2137.
2297. He'd have to live to be 198. That's a good incentive to stay out of trouble.
At sentencing, Madoff apologized to his victims. He said, "I have left a legacy of shame to my family and my grandchildren. This was something I will live with for the rest of my life. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't help you."
No, it doesn't.
The fallout extended well beyond Madoff himself. His son Mark, who had turned him in, hanged himself on December 11th, 2010, exactly 2 years to the day after his father's arrest.
That's quite the anniversary.
His other son, Andrew, died of lymphoma in 2014. His brother Peter was sentenced to 10 years. In 2022, Madoff's sister and her husband were found dead in their Florida home in an apparent murder-suicide.
Everyone around him. That's one hell of a blast radius.
I know, right? In prison, Madoff was known as Uncle Bernie by fellow inmates. He befriended Carmine Persico, the boss of the Colombo crime family, one of New York's 5 mafia families. It was believed Persico helped keep Madoff protected after another inmate slapped him for changing the television channel.
He needed the mafia to protect him. In prison. Because someone hit him over the telly remote. This man ran a $65 billion fraud for 40 years and ended up needing a mob boss to sort out a dispute about what to watch.
He died on April 14th, 2021, of kidney disease and heart problems in federal prison. He was 82. He had applied for compassionate release, citing terminal illness. It was denied.
Too bad, Bernie.
His ashes were cremated, against Jewish tradition, and as of the last available information, remain unclaimed in a lawyer's office.
Nobody claimed him, not even in death. Here's what separates Madoff from everything else we've covered. With FTX, with Enron, with Terra Luna, there's a moment where you can at least understand the psychology, the belief that it would work out, the scale getting away from them, the fraud starting small and metastasizing. With Madoff, there may never have been a legitimate moment. Some investigators believe the fraud started almost as soon as the firm opened in 1960. He told an acquaintance after his arrest that it began almost immediately. One employee spent 40 years doing what she was doing in 2008, fabricating records from her first day on the job.
And throughout all of it, through 4 decades of lying to his own community, to charitable foundations, to Holocaust survivors' endowments, he maintained the image of a philanthropist, a pillar of society, someone who gave back.
With other people's money that he was stealing.
The other thing that haunts this story is Markopolis. 10 years, mathematical proof, 6 investigations, and nothing. Madoff himself said the SEC acted like Lieutenant Columbo, bumbling around without asking the right questions. The man being defrauded the financial system for 40 years was mocking the regulators who failed to stop him. And he wasn't wrong.
No major Wall Street firm invested with him. The big derivatives traders wouldn't touch him. The people who actually understood the numbers didn't believe them. The money kept coming in from people who trusted a name, a reputation, a social connection, and a strip mall accountant.
Always the same people holding the bag at the end. This time, charities, foundations, retirement savings. People who thought their money was with the most trusted name in the room.
The most trusted name in the room. Former chairman of NASDAQ, pillar of the community, Jewish philanthropist. And underneath all of it, a bank account. Just client money, sitting in a bank account, while he made up the rest. Anyway, what did we learn?
That the longer a fraud runs, the more legitimate it appears. And the more legitimate it appears, the longer it can run. That exclusivity is a weapon. That affinity, shared community, shared identity, is one of the most powerful tools a fraudster can use, because it replaces due diligence with trust. That regulators being told something is wrong repeatedly by someone with mathematical proof and doing nothing is not an aberration. It's a pattern. And that a 3-person strip mall accountancy firm signing off on $65 billion should, perhaps, have raised a question or two.
A lifeguard with $5,000. The chairman of NASDAQ, $65 billion. Strip mall accountant, Elie Wiesel's life savings. A mafia boss protecting the telly remote. Ashes in a lawyer's office. Just one big lie.
Next episode, we go to Singapore. A 28-year-old trader named Nick Leeson, a secret account numbered 88888, and how one man brought down Barings Bank, the oldest merchant bank in Britain, a bank that had financed the Napoleonic Wars. Gone in weeks.
This time it's different.
It never is.